You're watching and listening to Conscious Evolution Media, shifting global consciousness at consciousevolutionmedia.com.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Kids Talk Foundation, a global nonprofit organization providing youth advocacy, television programming, and training services in the United States, along with comprehensive medical and educational services for the developing world, most recently in Kenya, Africa, where Kids Talk Foundation provides a feeding program, medical care, and educational services to over 1,300 young people each day. Please help our youth and place your donation. Go to www.kidstalk.org. Are you in the entertainment industry? If you answered yes and you want to promote yourself, your passion, and profession, check out Creative Independent Artist magazines at CIAartists.com. Endorsed by Kids Talk Foundation worldwide.
Hitting the high waves of entertainment, world affairs, and a touch of high society. We bring you the new internet TV show, The Darling Show, with Brian Darling and Ninon de Verderosa. Brian and Ninon will feature hot topics with interesting guests from all walks of life. The anticipation of each show will keep you on the edge of life every week. Here are your hosts, Brian and Ninon.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Brian, and we're coming to you live from Los Angeles and Las Vegas, and this is The Darling Show. Hi there, Ninon. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm Ninon de Verderosa, and yes, we've got an incredible guest as well. And how are you, Brian?
Oh, gosh, I'm fantastic. You know, I have to tell you something. We didn't get to this on the last show, but I had such a great time. I have to share this with everyone.
Good.
I went down to the Pantages Theater last week. I spent a lot of time there, and they opened a new show called Catch Me If You Can, the musical, and it's based on the movie Catch Me If You Can, and that is based on a true story. And I just have such a great time at the theater.
Well, don't you go there kind of once a month or something, Brian?
Oh yeah, I try to hit most of the openings. I think Beauty and the Beast is coming up next.
Oh, but, I'm going to be in town for that. Make sure you take me.
Oh, we always have a good time. What did we see? The Book of Mormon?
Yeah, we saw the Book of Mormon. It was very unusual. I thought that was really great, but very unusual.
Well, I got to tell you, the theater, I don't know what my life would be like without the theater. It's such a great escape, and it's just the coolest thing. I love it. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the Pantages. They have a new website. It's pantageshollywood.com. So take a look at that and support your local theater. You'll have a great time. What's going on in Vegas?
Well, everything's going on in Vegas. I'm having an absolute ball because my brother arrived Sunday actually from London, well, from England actually, and we've been out on the town, so I've been kind of looking a little bit more of Vegas as a tourist. It's really fun. Little drinks here and little dinner here and a little gambling here, and it's absolutely fabulous. And then a friend of his came over yesterday, so that was even more exciting. So last night was big dinner time. We went to Spargo's at Caesar's Palace and had a fabulous time. I have never seen so many people gambling, though. I'm thinking, what is going on? But, you know, to top all that, I just want to introduce our guest because she's sitting there looking absolutely lovely, listening to all the grand old times you and I are having. Catherine, how are you?
Hi, good evening, Jan. I'm wonderful. How are you?
Oh, well, awesome.
I'm enjoying listening to the stories and the travels and the excitement of the two of you.
Yeah, the entertainment of the week.
Well, we never know really what we're gonna say next, so that's kind of the fun part of the show. It's you never know what you're going to. What is that box of chocolate thing? I keep going back to that. I don't know why.
Chocolates. You never know which one you're going to pick. You know.
That's right.
That's right. That was Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump.
That's right.
Tonight we've got some really hot topics to talk about. Catherine works at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, and she's very, very, very well educated and qualified to talk about elder abuse and senior services. And, you know, we're baby boomers. We're getting older, and, you know, there's some things...
Cut that out. We are not getting older.
Well, it's a fact of life, ladies. It's a fact of life, and we just have to be prepared for everything in this world. And when it comes to medical care, I go to Catherine. If I have anything I want to know, I call Catherine, and she sets me up with everything. So that's really going to be interesting. Yeah, we're going to hear some stuff about that. So Catherine.
Yes, Brian.
You know, we had a chat a little earlier today, and you mentioned that you come from an entertainment-based family, and I was very intrigued. Before we talk about what you're doing now, give us a little background about your connections to the entertainment business.
Well, it was an interesting growing up. I had a mother who worked actually in a hospital in Los Angeles, working with patients with Tay-Sachs disease and sickle cell anemia, and really working on educating families and patients about those diseases. And so was really educated, and through her work, she had actually met a patient at the time, and then later on decided to write a true life story about her interaction with this patient. Obviously, there's a lot of policies and regulations on confidentiality, of course, but through approvals and releases, a relationship was able to establish, and she wrote a life story about this individual, which turned out to be the movie Mask. I'm not sure if either of you remember.
Yeah, sure.
Well, you know what? We're talking Mask with my idol Cher. Is that the Mask we're talking about? I know that movie well.
That's
very
right.
well.
That's right. Cher played the main role of the mother who took care of this son with this illness, and that was going back to kind of how I grew up in the entertainment industry, is that I grew up with a mother who was very focused and concerned about people's lives and learning about their story, their real life stories, and turning that into popular film that people would want to see.
Wow, that's amazing. But that must have also made the patient feel pretty good.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the heart of amazing work with patients worldwide is coming from a very patient-centered focused, providing excellent health care and patient satisfaction, but really taking the time and the energy to understand the whole person, if you will.
Yeah, and giving them a little sort of guidance, because they're in a place where they obviously don't want to be, and you're sort of, trying to get them better again, but at the same time getting off the illness and trying to treat them as a person. That's hard to do.
Exactly, and I think through my mother's work and watching her really work in the entertainment industry, and how she developed her stories and researched stories, it established me to kind of really understand the human spirit and want to really go into the field of learning more about people.
So that's where you got your passion for people.
Yes.
Wow.
But not only people, Brian, it's the older generation at that.
Well, and Catherine, you took that passion into the medical field, and you became a psychotherapist. Is that correct?
Exactly. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist, and really what I specialize in is the older adult. And through, again, this is kind of my mother being this inspiration in my life. My grandmother, my mother's mother, actually grew ill and with Alzheimer's disease. And so I watched the baby boomer, if you will, but different generation, but the caretaker, if you will, of the older adult, and watching that relationship and her care in my grandmother's, kind of long-term life and end of life. And that really taught me a lot as well. And I developed a real passion for older adults.
Wow. And, we're not, just so our viewers know, we're not baby boomers here, but we will be someday. So,
you're not correcting yourself. Thank you.
Yes, we need to learn. We need to learn about these things someday. We'll be having to deal with these. I just want to make that clear.
Long way ahead, Brian.
I want to make that clear to everybody here. So let me see. What else do I have to ask you? What are some of the things that that the elderly and older people need to look out for? I hear a lot of news stories where people knock on their doors dressed as repairmen and they distract and then they rob them and all that kind of stuff. What are some of the things that older people need to be aware of, and maybe their adult children? Talk about that a little bit. I think that's something that everybody wants to know about, a little bit more about.
Yeah, I think that's a really important question to ask. And you hear sad stories in the news, and there are those that happen. I actually remember a story with a patient of mine. Somebody knocked on the door saying that they had lost their cat, and they thought their cat was in their backyard, and the older person let the person into the house. You know, we've heard of roofing scams with, heavy rainfall months and so forth. So I think the most important thing the takeaway for the older adult and that parent or that adult child is, stay educated, stay informed, I think is important. We don't want to live a life of fear, but I think today it's important to be aware of the things that can happen. I think that's the most important thing.
Yes, and you must be very aware of it. How did you get into sort of helping these older people, not exactly in sort of, their illnesses, but more in their everyday life and sort of, how I think there's a lot of abuse at home, which could be either with the wife or with the husband or even with the children. Their children can be very abusive to them because they're getting older and they've maybe got money and different stuff. How do you sort of get involved in all that? How do you learn all that?
Sure. I mean, I think it's through, as I shared experience growing up, the connection through my grandmother, but I think just my own personal experience working in different organizations in the elder industry, that you kind of, I guess to answer your question, the best is to just through dialogue with many older adults and identifying the needs and what they want to learn and what they don't want to learn, and really be able to identify some of those risk factors. I'm not worried about the older adult that's involved in the senior center or, takes yoga classes or is in a writing class at UCLA or involved in American College. I'm worried about the older person that lives at home alone, that is socially isolated, that doesn't get out and have the social support, even with or without family, that are not aware of the warning signs.
And it doesn't seem like we have really as much of a sense of community anymore. I think with the internet, the age of the internet, I think a lot of people have become more isolated, not just elderly people. I know I have a number of neighbors, in the neighborhood where I live. And, sometimes I just go in and check up on them and just say hello and make sure they're okay. If I haven't seen, Mrs. Jones down the street in a few days, I'll go over there and just kind of make sure she's okay. And I think that, in today's society, that really doesn't, unfortunately, that doesn't seem to happen quite so much. And, I think it really is important to get that outreach out there to people. If elderly people can't reach out, I think it's very important for all of us to try to reach out to them, even if they're not our relatives. So,
well, you're giving a very good example by doing what you're doing. And what is one of the worst cases you've had, Catherine, that you've actually seen with these elderly people that may have fallen down or something, and they could be there for days, and
Yes, I've had personal experience working with patients who have had a fall at home or slipped at home and have not been able to reach the phone or call anybody and have been on the floor of the bathroom for a few days. It's a horrible, horrible story, and the agony that you can imagine that somebody would have experienced. It makes me think of one of a really good resource. Cedars-Sinai does an enormous amount of community support and benefit, and we do a lot of education for older adults in the community. And one of the things that we have is a lifeline kind of emergency system, if you will, that an older adult can wear something, and if they were to fall.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's that little thing they wear around and they can press it 2 or 3 times or something.
Exactly. You can wear it on the neck. You can wear it on your wrist. It's designed well, so it looks kind of, fashionable. And, those are, you want to avoid stories like that, situations like that. And I've also heard of horrible situation of financial abuse, where an older person is maybe not aware of the scams and gets involved in, maybe giving a social security number or a credit card number, and then you're connected, to a gamut of problems.
So how do these people get sort of help for this particular thing? Because I'm not old yet, but when you get older, you don't remember things, like my grandmother. I remember they don't remember things and they don't do things. So how do is there a service out there that they can actually get hold of before they get really bad, that they can sort of check in that they don't get these scams and these things don't happen to them?
Yeah, yes, there are. And again, it's the isolated older adult that lives alone, that doesn't have the support system that is my greatest concern. So to answer your question, you'd want to reach out to every major community has a local senior center or senior resources. It could be as easy as looking in your local phone book, or today everybody has, a lot of people today have Google, but maybe not so many older adults have Google or internet. So
they don't even know how to work it either. It's like...
Exactly. So it's important to address that. Assisted livings and board and cares, there's a governing agency called the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, where they oversee that older adults are taken well care of in those environments. And then there's the elder abuse hotline that anybody can call and make an anonymous call if you think someone is being abused, physically, emotionally, financially.
Yeah, so keep your eyes out there. Actually, what I just wanted to do a little bit, Brian, is I wanted people to follow us on Twitter. Yes, they go to The Darling Show. And then we also have to like us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/The Darling Show. I'm really putting it out there today. And of course, don't forget to go to our website, www.thedarlingshow.com. You're going to see our previous shows that they kind of fold and they float by so you can see what we're all doing and what's going on. But we'd love to get you involved. The reason I bring that all up is because we're talking about getting involved. And if you get involved, with our show and what we're doing, people, what Catherine's talking about the older generation and how we can help them and what we can do for them. And I think, just be kind and keep an eye. If you've got older people living in your area, like you did, Brian, just sort of keep an eye on them. If you haven't seen them for a couple of days, go knock on their door and see if they're okay. I think that's enough. We don't have this problem as much in England, by the way. We do look after our older people there very, very well.
And that's very impressive. That's very impressive. So here's my little tip for everybody out there. Just wave, smile. You don't really have to get in people's business, but, pay it forward, all that kind of stuff. It really is such a good feeling. I do a lot of volunteer work in the LGBT community, and actually the Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Center has an entire program specifically designed for LGBT seniors. Which is, so there are people out there just like you. So you're never alone. I want everybody to know that you are never alone. You can pick up the phone. Catherine, do you have any phone numbers or websites that you can share with us for that hotline or any of that stuff?
Not off the top of my head, but, elder abuse hotline, again, it's something that you can find on the internet or in your local phone book.
Well, we'll get that information and we will post it up on thedarlingshow.com.
Good.
So go to thedarlingshow.com and we'll have that information up there for you.
Awesome. Now, I want to ask you a question, Catherine. What exactly do you do at Cedars, and how did you get yourself into Cedars? Because I know Cedars, that's the one on Santa Monica, isn't it? Is that the one you are?
It's in Los Angeles.
Yeah, Los Angeles. Yeah. And how do you get involved in that? Because that's an incredible hospital, and they really care for people there, and it's a beautiful place to actually be. How did you and what are the older people like there?
Interesting question. I started at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center about 10 years ago. really doing program development for one of our older adult programs, and which was a kind of an outreach program for older adults, and also providing group psychotherapy for them. So it was a wonderful opportunity to really work with the older adult population. Cedars actually, and I'm glad you brought that up, many people don't know this about Cedars-Sinai. They may have a view that, we're the hospital of the stars. People know of Cedars-Sinai.
Oh, yeah, they do.
You hear about it on, Entertainment Tonight. But, what people don't know about the hospital, which I'm actually very proud to talk about, is that the amount of community involvement and contributions that Cedars does. We give millions and millions of dollars to the community. And that could be, we do a program called Coach for Kids, where we are in the school-based programs where children in different neighborhoods need that kind of support, whether it be through stressful situations or traumatic, situations. And to go back to the older adult, we have many different programs that assist older adults in the community. And I think we offer our senior care lecture series, which is open for any older adult in the community, to learn about important topics. How to fight diabetes, how to stay safe in your home, how to, the importance of diet and exercise as we age.
Absolutely. I just want to give a shout out here. I believe we are on blog. I don't know if we're on it or off it. I think we're on Blog TV.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Blog TV is...
Oh, he was asking if we were on. We're not on.
It's amazing.
We're not on Blog TV, but if we keep saying it, we will be.
Come on, Blog TV.
Where are you?
Click on the Darling Show so we can say hello to you.
There you go. It's funny, you were saying at Cedars about the younger generation. I did a show a few years ago, and it was all about these young teenagers actually had a hotline out of Cedars. They had this room in there, and they had all these phones, and these young teenagers would talk to other teenagers that were either having a drug problem or an illness or something, and this was all catered and done through Cedars, and I thought that was amazing. And it was a hotline program for teenagers, so they take care of kind of everybody, but I just wanted to know about the older people,
Absolutely. I mean, one of the other, community resources is our teen line, and just like you just mentioned, and it's this hotline. I have always thought it was amazing because you can, and it's really focused on, troubled teens going through trauma, whether it be, stressors at school or at home with parents. I mean, it's a tough time being an adolescent and a teenager. And the teen can actually call into the hotline and get another teen. How brilliant is that?
I thought it was so unusual, which I thought was absolutely perfect. Rather than the teens speaking to a grown-up or a doctor or somebody that they really don't want to talk to, they were able to talk to their peers, teenagers talking to teenagers about, and they had suicide, children that really wanted to commit suicide. And and this does really happen. I let our audience know that it does go on out there, and it is happening out there. But when they talk to each other, they kind of had this they understand the wording,
Exactly. And I think
cool.
They share this common denominator, and it kind of normalizes, if that's the word, for the troubled teen, that, I've been through this too, and you're going to be okay, and I'm here for you, and they kind of talk it through and help a lot of people. So Cedars reaches out to teens, to older adults, to children. I mean, we are so active in the community.
Yeah, and which is wonderful. People don't know that. They just think you as a hospital.
They think of us as a hospital, and I think they think of us as like the hospital maybe to the famous or the stars, because again, that's what the media picks up, and that's where maybe a lot of those celebrities live in the area. But the amount of, our goal is to really improve the health of the community and be there for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what about research? I know that Cedars is on the cutting edge of. Is it a transplant center?
Yes. I mean, one of our, real mission statements is the focus on research, the amazing amount of work that we do that, and really cutting edge research to, again, benefit the patient and the family member. We have the California Heart Institute, So we're really, today Cedars is the place to be if you want to have a heart transplant. If you have to have that done, you want to, find a really good medical physician at Cedars-Sinai.
Absolutely. I will vouch for that one because my husband actually, before he passed away, he had fibrillation of the heart and he was actually treated at Cedars we went there many, many times, and the doctors there, absolutely incredible, and they treated him beautifully and actually took very good care of him, and he managed to live much longer than, I anticipated. But yeah, they were an incredible team.
Oh, that's good to hear. That's wonderful.
Now, I have in my notes here that you also, let's talk a little bit more about traumatic stress. What does that really mean? Put that in a corporate environment. What effect does that have on the CEOs and the corporate executives and politicians and important people in this country? How important is it for them to, make sure that they stay healthy?
Oh, I think that's a great question. In regards to traumatic stress, you hear that word a lot. It's been something that people focus more, I think, on the news today. It really developed years back, and I certainly was trained in the area of critical incident stress management back in, I guess it was like the mid-90s. Companies learned early on that if there was a traumatic event within a company, let's use an aircraft company. God forbid a plane goes down.
9/11.
Well, horrible.
9/11, yeah.
But even way before 9/11, airline companies learned that they needed to create some sort of support system for the survivors of the crash within the company. So put aside passengers for a second. Think about the crew members of a plane. If a plane were to go down, and then think about the rest of the employees of an airline company, the support system that's needed for those individuals to stay productive in their workforce and keep functioning in life. So it was really developed long ago that if you brought in some kind of crisis management for those employees and individuals, you'll have less absenteeism. You'll have less, unproductivity and keep people in the workplace, if that makes sense to you. So I think it's really important for organizations today to establish what we call employee assistance programs. Many companies have that. I know Cedars-Sinai Medical Center has a wonderful one.
It's funny, we don't think of all that. We don't think of what the people that survive in these crashes or what goes on. We don't think of the trauma they are going to go through to get back into a plane, to fly it or to be the air host or whatever they are, to get back and move forward. I mean, how do you treat that? That's really hard.
Think about maybe that flight attendant who just lost a half a crew but survived, has to get back on a plane, whatever, his or her time is of leave. So companies, I think the investment for companies to really put the employees in the light where to offer those kinds of supportive services is really important.
Right. Now, Catherine, have you been deployed on any of these traumatic? Can you give us a real life example on something that you've done?
I can give you a real life example, and I've been deployed on many situations, and I serve as actually a volunteer on Cedars-Sinai's Employee Assistance Critical Incident Stress Management, which is focused on the Cedars-Sinai employee. So if there's a trauma, let's say, that happens, let's say an employee, something happens to an employee and it affects a nursing unit, I would be asked to go to that nursing unit to give support. To answer your question as far as a real life situation was the farmers market incident on the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica.
Yeah, when the old guy went into all the people.
Yes, and for those who don't know, a number of years ago, an elderly gentleman in a car in Santa Monica drove up the curb and through some embankments and unfortunately struck and killed a number of people, and that was a very
It was horrible. There was
horrible event.
horrible event. Many people injured. I believe 10 or 11 people have passed away because of that.
Yeah.
And I was deployed as a consultant, interestingly enough, to the businesses that were located on the 3rd Street Promenade that witnessed the event. Okay, so again, going back to the focus on the corporation of the company, so there was a bank at the time on one of the corners near the 3rd Street Promenade where the bodies were lined up. Okay, so you had the bank employees seeing helicopters and emergency vehicles and bodies and body bags lined up in front. So can you imagine what that was like for the bank teller who went to work that morning?
Oh,
That's dramatic.
awful. It had to be awful.
I was brought in. The bank hired me to come in and give support to those individuals in the bank that were traumatized, who didn't want to go to work the next day, who, had significant trauma because of what they saw. So that was probably my most memorable experience of being deployed on a critical incident stress management. And I actually was deployed to several businesses along the 3rd Street Promenade.
Now, putting it on you, how did you feel about that? How did you feel about coming away from that when you had to explain all that? What was your reaction?
Yeah, how do you vent? All the, you're out there, you're helping all these other people, and now you've taken in a significant amount of trauma and stress on behalf of others. How do you deal with that?
I was curious if you were going to ask me that question, because I think that's a really important question for the provider of these kinds of critical incident stress services, is that I always feel that I kind of take on the impact of the trauma on some level. And so I'm left with, okay, well now it's, how do I, kind of debrief through that? So there are things that I do. I usually, this type of work, you have to have supportive colleagues. You need to kind of debrief and connect with someone that you can share about the process that you just undertook. And I also learned early in my training that if you engage in some kind of exercise within the first 24 hours of a traumatic experience, whatever that is for you, doesn't have to be something, whatever that is, that helps it move through kind of your system a little bit. So I always am, getting on a bike or doing a run or just walking within the 24 hours of the time that I experience the trauma.
So you take your mind completely off it and you start doing something different to distract yourself, to clear your mind out, which is a great thing for regular people to do without even to get rid of their stress and their drama of an everyday life.
Absolutely. And whatever that is for you that reduces your stress, so you can, be in more of a coherent, if you will, atmosphere, is good for all of us in our relationships.
Oh, yeah, that's it. A lot of this stuff is very simple, and people just don't think about it because we never expect a traumatic experience. Obviously, there's no preparation that can be done, and, it's very important. Catherine, I wish there was more people like you on this planet, because I've had a chance to work with you a little bit. Catherine is a member of the Beverly Hills Chamber of Commerce, which we talked about on a prior show. And we've just welcomed Catherine actually onto our ambassador committee. So Catherine and I will be doing some Beverly Hills events together, and that's a lot of fun. And
well, maybe she can come on one of those rides, Brian, when we're going to get those big wheels and we're going to drive around Beverly Hills. The three of us could go driving around Beverly Hills.
Oh, the segways, yes,
the
Catherine.
Segway, yes.
Ninon and I are going to go down to Beverly Hills and take the Segway tour.
I don't even know what that is.
You know those big things on wheels? It's like two big giant wheels, and you stand up on it and drive around.
I feel like I'd fall off one of those things. That would be my traumatic experience.
The wheels are very big, so I don't think you're going to fall off. But it looks very exciting.
Absolutely. I will join you.
You know, I read a, it's not a really funny story, but it's an interesting story. The guy that developed that Segway, he was actually killed. He was working on a Segway with like all-terrain, you know, tires or something, and I believe he went off a cliff. How ironic.
Yes, that doesn't sound, that's not a too healthy story, but that's
Not
okay.
a too healthy story, but they're really fun. So we're going to try that. I'll give you a call. Maybe we can do that together. And I have a big volunteer team for AIDS Life Cycle, which is coming up in June. And I believe, Catherine, you might be joining me. I'm not sure, but we'll have to see about that too. Nina and I were talking about actually riding. We're thinking about getting one of those tandem bikes.
Oh, cycle along. Do they have one for 3?
Sure. Well, I'm waiting for them to allow mopeds.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, I know it says, you know, kind of cheating, but I don't know. One of these years, I think I'll definitely have to do that.
I think we'll just have to stay on the sidewalks, no cliffs, right? We have to stay away from cliffs.
No cliffs in Beverly Hills. I want to get back to Catherine. Have you ever thought of writing a book, or have you written a book?
You know, I've never written a book. I used to journal write, though, so I could say I have enough material to put together a book. I flirt with the idea, maybe someday.
That would be wonderful, because I think you've got so many interesting stories, and you know, in our society we don't really engage the older generation, the seniors. They get old and they're good, no good, or they're old and goodbye. You know, we don't really, and you must have so many incredible stories. Which is easier, though? Is it easier to help a man older or a woman older?
Oh, I have to think about that.
That's a good question.
That's a very interesting question.
But, you know, because we all got different personalities. Men have their, I don't want to say grumpy, but, you know,
You're not grumpy. What are you talking about?
I didn't say you were old either.
Well, you know what? I think that's, you know, I love your question. I think personally, though, I'm going to say that for me, my preference, or, you know, is maybe working with the older adult male. And I think the reason why, too, is, you know, believe it or not, outside of teenagers, the older adult male is the highest suicide rate.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Is older adult white males. So if we bring in Caucasian males, older adult, living alone, usually the spouse is has passed away. That is a, you know, you want to watch out, you know, for those individuals as well. It's not just the little old lady that we think about that we maybe haven't seen while in the community, but it's the older males that are the ones that have the means, and there are more suicide attempts and committed suicides.
I think would that be because they're so used to I presume this would probably be from a long marriage, and the wife's sort of passed away, and now he's got to look after himself, and all of a sudden he's relied on this woman that's sort of taken care of him, and she's always been there and doing everything. All of a sudden he's got to start doing it all himself, and he doesn't really, and they starts missing her and starts getting depressed and realizing how important she was.
I think there is some truth in that, and that's been my personal experience working with older adult males. They tend to need us when they tend to need a compassionate person in their lives as they age. I find that older adult women, though, let's say if the husband has passed away, because women today, we outlive men. We always have. Sorry, Brian. But we outlive.
Just our genes, whatever it is.
It's true. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that fact, yeah.
I find that the older adult women, as they carry on through life, they don't desire remarrying. They don't feel that they need a man to age with. They kind of are this self-sufficient. I mean, I'm generalizing, you know, for the audience here, but that's pretty much what my experience has been.
Yeah, which is actually true, because the woman doesn't need the man as much to take care of her as of the house and companionship and everything, because he was the one financially. But when you get old, you're both bringing in financial situations, so it's not really who's got more than what. You know, it's by that time it's all equaled out anyway. So the woman is a little bit more independent, because she's so used to doing it all.
Well, there is some truth to this. To that.
Yeah.
That's how I would answer that question for me, but maybe another, provider would, or a healthcare specialist would feel, see it differently.
Well,
Now,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I want to just take a minute to welcome our guest if you're just joining us. I'm here with Catherine Jonas from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and my lovely co-host Ninan de Rosa. You can follow us on Twitter at The Darling Show. You can like us on Facebook. Oh, we have a great Facebook page. It's facebook.com/The Darling Show, and of course our ever-evolving website, thedarlingshow.com.
So
I'm
we've
sorry,
done
Ninan, go ahead.
Yours was so interesting. I was listening to you. It was so great. But I just would like to know the greatest advice you can give to the older generation right now out there to take care of themselves as of listening to our program. What would something you really, really feel that would really help them?
Okay, that's a great question, but I'm going to, if I may, I'm going to expand your question.
Good, I want you to.
I'm going to expand your question that the most important thing I think for the older adult encompasses family, and I'll tell you why. I would say for the older adult, you want to have really good communication with your family members about your end of life wishes.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people today, well, first of all, we're a death-denying society. People don't like to talk about our death. People don't want to. It's not like we're gathering around the kitchen table and say, all right, Mom, how do you want to die? Do you want to die at home? Do you want to die in a hospital? We don't have those conversations. They're hard conversations to have. And I think I'm a firm believer that it rests in the responsibility of that older person to communicate what their wishes are. I'm all for advance directives where you put it on a piece of paper and it goes in your doctor's chart. But at the end of the day, if you have to go into the hospital and you're unconscious, your advance directive may not be found. And people put it in safety deposit boxes. Bad idea. Putting aside, a legal document, communicate with your family. I have seen horrible stories where you have an older adult on life support in the hospital, and you have one child that thinks Mom wants to stay on life support, and you have the other sibling that says, no, Mom wouldn't want to be on life support.
Of course.
And you've got this huge conflict with these two adult children in the midst of grief and loss that their parents passing away. So I think the best thing for people to do is communicate about these hard topics and write it down on a piece of paper and talk with your family about it. I know it's not easy.
But don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid that you're going to go someday. You might not go for another 20 years or 30 years or whatever the case is. But at least I think that the older people would also feel, I think they need to feel a little bit more comfortable with that at least they know when their sort of final days are coming, and whether they become senile, whatever happens with them, at least they will be taken care of.
Right.
And I think that's important.
Yes, and I think it's our responsibility to communicate that to ourselves, to know what we want, what our wishes are, and to be able to communicate that to our family and to those that are taking care of us in hospitals too. A lot of times, and hospitals are doing amazing work today. I know Cedars has this incredible spiritual care program and incredible nurses that are really, and physicians as well, that are focused on really having dialogue with patients. What are your wishes? How can we be there to support you in what you need, especially patients that come in that may only have 6 months left of life. We want to have those dialogues, and they're important to have.
Yeah, they are very important, very, very important to have. And I think that both men and women should definitely face their family with. And if they don't have the family, face a good friend or somebody that sort of, they've been attached to for some time, or, whatever their situation may be.
Yes. And I'm very glad you brought that up, because family is not always the supportive system for somebody.
No.
Right?
Sometimes it's easier for them to go to somebody else than it is to go to their own daughter or son.
And no judgment there. Sometimes it's better to have that close friend that you trust that will make those end-of-life decisions for you if you can't. At the end of the day, the most important thing is that you identify the person that's going to carry out what you want, not what they want.
Yeah. No.
And it doesn't have to be a doom and gloom conversation. have a cup of coffee, go out for breakfast. You know, it's a natural thing, and I think the more shows like this that are on air, it just really, the more we talk about these things, the more normal it becomes. And I think it's very important, Catherine, that you're communicating this, to our viewers. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on this show, because it is a very, very important topic. It happens to everyone at some point. And, I've always said that preparation is really the best thing. Now, I'm all about the financial aspect of it. So
Right.
I would say, make sure you have a living revocable trust. Make sure you have a will. There's a very wonderful resource website called SusieOrman.com. And there's so many things on there. I just love Susie Orman. She communicates all this information in ways that anyone can understand. You don't have to be a financial expert, but there are a few things that, if you do through your life, it will actually make it easier for those that you leave behind. And it's so important, so important. I can't stress it enough.
It is very important. I do want to ask you another question. We have a lot of foreigners, especially in Beverly Hills and around where you are working. How do you cope with all these different foreigners with the different languages? Do they actually have in the hospital, which I'm sure they do, different languages to take care of each patient?
Absolutely, absolutely. I can speak for Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. We actually have a Center for International Medicine. We have interpreter services. So if you speak Farsi or you speak Russian or you speak Spanish, we have people on site there that help communicate and translate dialogue between physicians and patients and family members. I think one of the dynamic things, though, that Cedars has is the Center for International Medicine. We actually have medical coordinators that are attached to the Middle East, to South America, to Europe, that are actually here and available for patients in those areas that want to come to Cedars-Sinai for services.
That's amazing. Because, I think a lot of these older people speaking a foreign language, they get a little inhibited by, there's nobody there to understand me, there's no point in going, and they won't understand what's wrong with me and all this, and they get frightened and they get worried. But I think if we have that out there, that they do have that service, and I'm sure most hospitals do, but Cedars is such a dynamic hospital that, everybody wants to go there. So I think that's a great thing to know that you do take care of them.
Absolutely. And today medical tourism is a term that's becoming more popular, where a family, let's say from the Middle East, may come to the Beverly Hills area and stay for a couple of weeks, meanwhile come to Cedars-Sinai for services.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot more families like that. Meanwhile, if they have a young family, they may go to Disneyland, they may go to the zoo, or they may go to different areas here. So we're really embodying families from different countries and cultures into the Cedars-Sinai family.
Are you seeing older people living longer or living shorter, or how are you looking at it? I mean, they're all saying we're trying to keep them alive longer. Is it happening?
We are living longer. We are living longer. I saw a billboard the other day. I was driving down, where was I? I think it was Sunset Boulevard, and I saw a billboard that said, 1 in 3 babies. 1 in 3 babies will start living to age 100. So born, wow. 1 in 3 born today. So to answer your question, we are living longer, obviously because of incredible medical breakthroughs. And I think we're learning more about how to take care of ourselves. It's just kind of evolution. And which brings me back to what Brian said about, being financially educated, and the things that I've contributed to this show tonight about, communication with family and being smart and wise is that, we're going to be living longer. I think that at the end of the day, that's the case.
Yeah, so Brian, we have to prepare to get their financial status in order for another extra 5 or 10 years, because that's quite a long time.
Absolutely. A lot of people now, I highly recommend that people look into long-term care insurance as they get into maybe their early to mid-50s. I would absolutely call my insurance broker and ask them about long-term care coverage. People don't have pensions like they used to anymore. You know, so we really must plan financially also for our futures. And, oh gosh, I was just going to say something really interesting and I lost my thought completely.
That's all right. It'll come back after. It'll come back after the show.
I think I'm getting old. In front of your
Brian,
eyes, I think I'm getting old.
Do you know when we start aging, Brian?
Oh
Very
gosh.
young. I know it's quite a young age. What is it, 25 or 30?
We start aging at birth.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know it was that young.
That's
Wow.
true. Unless your name is Benjamin Button.
Exactly.
And, you know, that's a whole nother thing. But that was a pretty good movie. I sort of liked that movie.
Isn't it? It was a great how he kind of reversed it. It was very interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was sort of interesting.
You know, that's, going back to the older adult, that's something that I've always really appreciated about the older person, because that's where we're going. That's going to be, we're going there.
We're all in the same direction.
Exactly.
We're all in the same place. However old or young we think we are, we're all in that same direction. I want to ask you another question. Obesity in the older generation. How are we coping with that? Is it bad? Is it, because I see an awful lot of kind of older people that can't exercise, maybe because of a knee injury or this injury or whatever the case is.
Yeah,
how do we cope with that?
Interesting question. And again, I may expand on that in that we see a lot of obesity with older adults, and yes, it is through lack of maybe movement of the body, maybe not having the diet or the nutrition. But one of the big problems with the older adult population is prescription drug abuse.
Yeah.
That's a big problem because a lot of older adults are on an enormous amount of medications. Some they may not even know what they're taking, or that they may have 3 doctors prescribing different medications and those doctors are not in dialogue. That's what we really see. And alcoholism. We see a lot of alcoholism in the older adult population, both
Really?
drug and alcohol, in my opinion, more than eating problems.
Really? So they're trying to drown their sorrows.
Perhaps, and then if you have a lot of medications,
But
that's
then
not.
you mix the alcohol with the pills. Why are doctors prescribing, because this is like an epidemic right now, why are doctors prescribing so many medications to these people? Why?
I think there's several several reasons for that. I think the thing that is the most important for the older adult, if you have different doctors. I know a lot of older adults have an endocrinologist, they have a cardiologist, they have a primary care doctor. Make sure your doctors are talking to each other. Make sure they all know what you're being prescribed. I've seen cardiologists prescribe antidepressants. I've seen psychiatrists, it's something that you really want to stay on top of for that older adult. And if you're an adult child who's taking care of mom or dad that maybe needs assistance around medication, management, be aware and be proactive with your parents' doctors if they allow you to do that.
Yeah, because you see these bundles of boxes and things and tubes of medication, and there's so many of them, and you look at it and think, why? They're too old really to sort of really take all that stuff. But also I've noticed that on television, when they're advertising an awful lot of these pills out there, and then they start, if you take this, you be careful you don't take too much of it or you'll die or you'll do this. And they're putting all these strange things into these ads. When you look at the ad, you think, wow, I don't even want to touch this stuff. How do they sell it that way? I know they have to.
By law, they have to list all the side effects.
Yeah.
Even if during their studies, one person had nausea, they have to list that.
Yeah, you won't be depressed anymore, but you'll have headaches, nightmares, sleepwalking, and you don't remember it, weight gain, acne. I don't know. Does the benefit really outweigh I don't know. I think I'd rather be depressed. If I was going to get all those other things, that would probably depress me more.
You know,
Oh, absolutely. We have a question here, Steve, Brian. It's a question for you, Catherine. Why do we have pharmacies on every corner of the street? You probably can't answer that. I can't.
And they're popping up everywhere in Los Angeles, literally on every corner in Los Angeles, just about.
Well, that's what they're saying. That was the question. Why?
Yeah, and I think today, and we've covered so many amazing topics just in this short hour. I think we are, so focused on medication and turning to a medication sooner than not. And I think good quality healthcare today is really looking at the whole person, really addressing the psychosocial issues, not just the medical issues, but if somebody's coming in with high blood pressure, so let's look at, are there stressors? Are they sleeping? What is their day-to-day routines? What's their lifestyle?
Yeah.
Or are they eating, are they eating the foods that are maybe contributing to this? And I think, good physicians today will look at that whole person.
Yeah.
So it's a real comprehensive approach. Now, Catherine, if somebody wanted to get more information, how would they contact Cedars?
It's really, 1-800-CEDARS is the best way to find us. Again, if you have a computer, if you have internet access, you could Google us and find our link and just, learn that way. The best way to find a physician is 1-800-CEDARS. You'll get a live person. We'll ask you some questions about, a specialist that you're looking for, and we'll really guide you through that that process to find you the best care. We're here for everybody in the community. We really want to improve the health of the community.
There's another question here,
Yes.
Brian, and it says, we may be living longer, but the quality of life isn't there. That's the question. They don't have the quality. Yeah, we might all be living longer and living older, but we don't have the quality of life. So why are we, try to prolong our lives when we don't have the quality?
Well, I think that's a very individualized, comment and question. What is quality of life? And a quality of life is going to be different for me than different for somebody else.
Yeah.
So I would hope that one can embrace issues of quality of life, whatever that is for someone, as they age.
Great answer. On that, I think we're going to have to close.
I don't know where the time went, Nina. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us.
Very well.
And thank you, viewers out there in the world, for watching The Darling Show. Next week, we have such an exciting show where our guest will be Fauna Hodel. And she has an amazing true life story that's full of mystery and intrigue. So please join us next week at 8 o'clock Pacific time. Same bat time, same bat channel at thedarlingshow.com. On behalf of Nina de Rosa and our guest, Catherine, have a very nice evening. Bye, everybody.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
Catherine. Thank you. Take care, Brian. Bye-bye.
Bye, Nina.
Bye, take care.
Watch the Maxed Out Money Hour Internet TV show program All About Money with your hosts Ninon and Coach Steve every Tuesday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central at realcoachingradio.net.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Kids Talk Foundation, a global nonprofit organization providing youth advocacy, television programming, and training services in the United States, along with comprehensive medical and educational services for the developing world, most recently in Kenya, Africa, where Kids Talk Foundation provides a feeding program, medical care, and educational services to over 1,300 young people each day. Please help our youth and place your donation. Go to www.kidstalk.org.
You're watching and listening to Conscious Evolution Media, shifting global consciousness at consciousevolutionmedia.com.